This is like a very, you're talking to your uncle at a family event, and he's just like, so what made you want to become a musician?
Like
and you're just like, man.
You come up with the most probable answers,
Yeah,
and no one judges you.
Yeah. All right. Welcome to Classy Gals, where two classy gals sit down and talk about some classy music. I'm Josie, trombone enthusiast.
I'm Janey, a soprano.
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 So today's podcast is just going to be us talking about ourselves, basically, introducing the podcast in a very low-risk, unprofessional environment, I would say, to kind of introduce what our ideas are for the future for this and where we're going to go with it, but then to also introduce ourselves so that people that just start the podcast can come back, kind of know a little bit about us, and then watch some episodes in the future. So our idea for this podcast is kind of to go through different eras of music, starting in Baroque, going through classical, romantic, up into contemporary, mainly focusing on romantic, but going through composers and their lives and some different stories and some things that people might not know about them. And, you know, just works that they've done and things that we find interesting as two music students going through undergrad in music and going into performing and teaching and stuff like that. So I thought that was a little bit of an interesting topic that we could go through. It also gives us something to do with our free time.
It's also a really good play on our names.
Yes,
the Classy Gals.
Classy Gals. That was a pretty good choice on our part.
It's pretty good. So I guess first we can start off by just a brief little bio of ourselves. So I'm Jane. I'm from Newfoundland originally, and I'm in a second year performance degree at UPEI. My major is voice, and yeah, Josie, you can go on.
Yeah, a brief little description, I guess. I'm Josie, Janie's co-host, and I'm also in my second year university. I'm taking the same Bachelor of Music, going into education, actually. And basically, I am in a performance degree right now. I'm second year trombone player, and that's where we're both at.
Yeah.
That's where we're both at.
So we thought it'd be a good idea to go through some different interview questions for musicians. We're literally on, like, the Indeed Google page.
The Indeed... I was surprised you didn't choose, like, Reddit or something like that. I know. A Reddit thread of musician questions.
If these suck, we'll just go... we'll go to the Reddit page. So...
Reddit/musician questions.
So, the first question I'm going to ask for us is, what made you want to become a musician?
This is, like, a very... you're talking to your uncle at a family event, and he's just like, so what made you want to become a musician? And you're just like, man,
you come up with the most probable answers, and no one judges you.
Yeah. I'll go first with this one. What made me want to become a musician? It's music. It wasn't a question of if I wanted to go into music. It was when I was going to go into music. It wasn't an if, it was a when. So, I mean, it was always in me. Young age. That's a lot of musician stories is from young ages. I guess for me it would be a better avenue to say what made me want to teach, which is just like seeing people learn new skills, especially art skills, is very important to me. So me wanting to be a musician and me wanting to teach is basically trying to relay the joy that I get from music to other people. Yeah.
I kind of took, like, an opposite route of you. Like, I always was into music, like, very much so since I was, like, 7. And then, like, I always sang, and then my parents signed me up for lessons. But, like, I always wanted to be a teacher, and that was, like, always what I said. And everyone was like, you're going to be a teacher. Until I, like, hit, like, grade 10, and the teacher's like, what are you doing? Why are you going to be a teacher? And I'm like, you know what?
They saw the performer in
you. I was like, you're right. Like, I really don't know why I'm trying to tell myself to be a teacher. Well, it's like, yeah. So now I'm a musician. I've always been a musician. Just now I'm committedly a musician with no backup plan. Yeah. Because I'm not doing the ed.
Well, you have a couple avenues you can go through, right? Like musical theater or opera, classical music routes. So there's a couple different
There's a
avenues that
few.
you can go through there. So
And I could always go back to the teaching. So
Yeah.
it's not like I'm never going to teach.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
trying to wing
Yeah.
my life a bit right now.
Right.
So, should we move on to a different question?
Yeah, next question.
Okay. You tell me when to stop.
For those of you who can't see, which is all of you, she's going through probably about 120 questions right now. Stop.
Let's go this one. What qualities do you think makes a great musician?
This is a tough
A
one.
good input question.
It's one to think about and not put on the spot about. What makes a great musician to me is respecting yourself and respecting the art in which you're doing. I see it a lot where musicians play music to play music, but their respect for themselves makes it so that, you know, they might have a different outlook on what the music is, and if that my words aren't coming out as I want them to, but I think a mutual respect for other people and yourself. It's all too often that you see musicians that are have that supremacy about them, and I think that making a great musician is part of making a good person.
Mm-hmm.
But technically, making a good musician, I mean, the idea of just knowing what you want and going for it type thing.
Those are some good points.
Some good points.
I think I would word it like a good musician is somebody who doesn't know they're a good musician, maybe.
That might be what
It's
I'm
like
trying to say.
They're good at what they do, but they don't show it, you know?
They don't show it.
I mean,
It's
it's good to see confidence, but it's like, at the same degree, it's like, you know, like, they don't have superiority complex, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did I say that word correctly?
It's
complex.
Yeah, you did. It's kind of a two-edged question though, because you can judge their character
or their
musicianship in itself.
I guess
So
someone can
character-wise, a musician, what makes a good musician is somebody that is humble enough to realize that they are good without making other people feel like they are not good.
Mm-hmm.
But musician-wise and music-wise, technically-wise, it's
I once saw a quote, actually. That was the most professional thing I've ever said.
from
but...
Reddit.
Actually, from Pinterest.
From Pinterest.
It said a good musician is somebody who learned all the rules, and then once they learn it, they throw it out the window and just have fun with it.
Right.
And I feel like that's a good point. Like, it's good to understand it and then just have fun with it and not take it too seriously. I mean, obviously, you gotta take your job seriously if you're a musician, but I think those who are a good musician really just enjoy what they're doing. And it goes back to what you were saying, like, it's not a matter of if you'll be a musician, but when you'll be a musician.
That's a question that I feel like I would need to think more about, make some notes
that's a
about
hard,
it,
a
and
quick one,
and really like relay my thoughts. I'm gonna pick a question here.
For those who don't know, we're taping this on GarageBand. And
This is our first podcast.
We have no experience.
We have no experience. Hopefully, if this gets good traction, you know, we'll
get some money.
We'll get some money
and buy some good equipment. We're using a blue snowball microphone. On GarageBand. It says we've been talking for 260 bars, 2 beats, 120 tempo.
The metronome was going before this and everything. All right, I'm gonna do a question that will probably us as only undergrad students wouldn't have as much experience with bigger crowds solo performance wise. But describe your worst performance. What did you learn from this experience?
Ooh.
This could be both ways, ensemble wise or solo wise, but I'm thinking more solo.
I've had a horrible experience with a performance before.
Tell me that story.
So in my town there's a yearly festival called the Rotary Festival, and I was in grade 9, prime age of grade 9, and music was my life at this point. But this was also the point of my life where I was developing in my theater. So this particular year I was in a drama festival, and I had just a little too much fun at the drama festival that year. It was the night before the Rotary Festival, and we had like a sock up, and we were like yelling, and then
A sock hop. I haven't heard that since grade 7.
yeah, we had a sock up. Was it grade 9 actually? It might have been. No, it would have been grade 9.
It definitely gives grade 9 energy.
Yes, it was grade 9 because that was like the year my school held it. So anyways, so then all week everyone was like, don't do that because you got a festival you're going to sing in. And I was like, oh well, who cares? So I had a pile of classical music lined up that year, and it was high music, like soprano music, and I could do it normally, but when I went onto that stage, none of my high notes came out. And then the adjudicator was like, why would you choose these songs? Why would you choose songs you can't sing? And I'm like, I usually
you know you could sing them.
But like I also was at the point in my life where I wasn't confident to be like, I can usually do it. I was just like taking it, and my mom was like, she can do it, I swear. And my mom was like showing videos. But
for those of you who don't know Janey's mom, and if Hernanda's listening to this, hello Hernanda, I know you well enough to say that I've overheard many of times you telling your daughter to stand up for herself.
I don't.
And I'm here to say that I have told her that as well.
I say that was a point in my life when it's still a point in my life. But anyways, so from that moment on, you know what? I still sang. I didn't run off stage, and I proceeded to do the whole festival voice cracking.
Voice a cracking.
But for a whole year afterwards, I was petrified to sing any high song, and I like literally let it stop me sing until I was like, I think I went to a musical, and then there was one woman who knew me prior, and she was like, Janey, I know you can do it. You're just in your head too much. And then she talked me into it, and I hit the notes that I usually could. And from there on, I've been good. So I think you should just learn not to let others' words get in your head. If you are...
Yeah, and that, I mean, like...
And also don't scream at a drama festival the night before you have to sing soprano music. Or any music.
I'm actually gonna piggyback off your idea there of not letting other people's words get in your head. That's probably the hardest thing about being a musician. I've learned in these last few semesters that sharing work that either you're not confident in or is unfinished or maybe something that you think might go wrong is probably the hardest thing to do as a musician. And even if you are confident, listening back or knowing that feedback is terrible, or that you feel terrible about the performance, which is what I'm going to get into with my story, it's like you don't know how to move on from that for like a week at least.
It just sticks in your mind forever.
It sticks in your mind, and it affects you way more than any good feedback will.
Me and my lessons teacher in university actually have talked about this very recently, and he told me that like musicians' worst thing to get past is their own mind. And it's like once you get that one comment in your mind, it's hard to get it out, and it will affect your music because it's in your mind.
And I could even go back to what makes a good musician is taking that criticism and building off of it, in a positive light. Yeah. But I think every single performer that ever lived was at that low point. So getting into my story, actually my worst performance was, in my opinion, this year. I guess it would have been last fall, but the first performance of my second year, I performed an Andante and Allegro, row parts, trombone and piano solo. I felt confident going into it, played it, got off stage, I did it. I was very happy, but I did the awful mistake of listening to it that night. Didn't even give it time to set into my heart.
Just listen to it.
Just sat down and was just so bold. I just put it on and I listened to it, and totally ruined my confidence for about 2 or 3 weeks there. Considered doing other things, and even though in my heart, it's always been like, when am I going to do music? It's going to be music. It's going to be music. That totally ruined it. I had bad tone. I didn't do any phrasing right. I didn't make my sound known. I wasn't focused. I was totally out of it. There was actually at one point, I was in my head so much that I missed a piano cue, and my pianist had to hold on to some notes for me just so that I would be able to catch up to her. Little bit of a show that I didn't want to watch again, and ever since I never listened to that performance again. But I learned a very good lesson on not only technically phrasing, tone, quality, blah blah blah, but it taught me a good lesson on letting performance sit with you a little bit before you go back and critique yourself. And you're your worst critic.
Yeah, honestly.
You are your worst critic, and no matter how hard somebody else is on you, you're always going to be harder on yourself. So that
like, no matter how many people tell you, "Oh, that was awesome," you're always just going to hear your own thought.
Yeah,
it's like it's if it's in there, it's in there.
Yeah,
and it's like your story. It's like I think it's good to look at those kind of performances and be like, just learn from it.
That's very true.
Because it's like you could look at it as a bad performance, or you could look at it and be like, well, every performer needs their iffy performances.
That's very true. That's very true.
And but it's also, no matter how you look at it, a lot of more people will look at it and be like, that was good to me. Like, I don't know what was wrong.
Yeah. It's another two-edged sword, and you get what you can take.
Mm-hmm.
Get what you can take in terms of good and bad criticism, but
there's just no winning with either side.
there is no winning.
Honestly.
In classical music, I find a big, well, in any sort of performing arts, you find that big criticism gap there. Because we're showing what we are. We're
Basically.
showing what we do. We're showing the hard work that we've put in. So showing all that, you're being very vulnerable.
Especially, it's like, if you look at it, it's like you're spending months and months to prepare for 2 minutes on stage. And so when you mess up those 2 minutes, it's like, why did I do that? Sorry to scream and get vocal with you guys, but...
Sorry, the soprano is getting vocal.
Sorry.
They never do that.
Sorry, yeah, we never usually overexert our throats. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I never heard tell of a soprano being obnoxiously loud.
Oh, yeah, it's so uncalled for. You know what I also have never heard of? A soprano eating yogurt. Except that one's legit.
I want to interrupt today's podcast to say that we're sponsored by Activia yogurt and Almond Breeze chocolate milk.
Yum yum.
That's what we're consuming in today's podcast.
If you take, we do not hold any liability for any musicians who have to perform tomorrow. Sorry, don't drink milk. Don't eat milk.
And you're the one drinking milk, and you're the singer. I'm literally drinking lactose free.
Well, what can I say? It's the weekend. I gotta treat myself.
What can we say?
But I treat myself with yogurt like every day. So.
Okay. Although there's a lot of questions that we could ask each other. I mean,
you know what? I have an idea. Unless you had an idea.
Go right ahead. We're
Okay.
women. This
we could talk about our favorite composer and how they inspire us.
Yes.
Because I think that's a good way to start, because it gets into the classical music and it gets into our life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, you can go first.
Okay. So.
Oh, I'd like to preface this by saying this is our favorite composer at the time. I have a very big feeling we're going to be learning more and more as we go, research-wise and everything like that, and
most
something
likely
might
will
stick out.
change.
But these are ones that have affected us to date.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that date is February 28th. January 28th.
Yeah, it's Friday.
It's a Friday. Yeah. So, I would say my favorite is 100%. I'm acting like I have to think about it. Schubert. Franz Schubert. Franz Schubert. France? How do you say it? Franz? Franz. Franz. Anyways.
Just say the last name again.
Schubert. Not to be confused with Schubert. He's a German composer. He was known for his lieder. I kind of grew up singing his songs and kind of didn't realize, because I didn't always look at the composers. But when I got to school, I realized that I sang a lot of his music growing up, and they were typically the songs that I loved the most. One of them being Gretchen am Spinnrad. This was my first challenge.
Those challenge pieces
they stick with you.
They stick with you.
And then I forgot about it until I got into second year music history, and then our teacher played Gretchen am Spinnrad, and it clicked in my brain. I was like, whoa, what the heck? And then I was like, I know this. And then we learned a lot about Schubert, and I would say, I don't know, I kind of vibe with Schubert. He was kind of a man, me and Shuby.
Me and Shub.
me and old Shubster. Anyways, he was a man he was known to be quiet, and he was the most mysterious, and I kind of like vibe with that because like
Do you think you're quiet and mysterious?
I feel I don't know if I'm quiet.
But you're mysterious.
I'm a very open book. No, he obviously didn't. I don't know how to describe it. I guess I would say the difference between him and like others, like the others knew they were cool. Like they're like, oh yeah, we're good musicians. But I feel like he wasn't the kind of man to just be like.
You think he was a humble king?
I think he was a humble king. I think Schubert was a humble king. He wrote some really good chamber music. People said like he just liked to keep to himself and his little friend group, and there's like no known paper trail of him, which I think is pretty interesting. How does this connect to me? I have a big paper trail. Lots of receipts, but I don't know.
Janie's a big fangirl.
I'm a big fangirl. Yeah. But okay, here's how. Okay, I would describe him to like my like most like to like a modern fangirl thing. Like I love David Bowie for how unique he is. I feel like Schubert's that unique dude.
Yeah,
he's like the dude who was like, oh yeah, he's cool. You know, but like
David Bowie of the Romantic era.
He might not have been as adventurous of the. I feel like Beethoven was as adventurous of David Bowie.
Yeah.
But like Schubert, I just vibe with him. I like him. I feel like he was a little under the radar, a misunderstood man. But that's for another episode.
Do you think he was quirky?
I think he was very quirky. Do you see those glasses?
Reddit/quirky. Just pictures of Schubert show up.
Don't stop exposing me. His nickname was literally the Mushroom.
The Mushroom.
I don't vibe with anyone unless they're named the Mushroom.
The Shroom.
The Shroom. But yeah, I think his music is just amazing, and it inspires me to be the musician I am.
You an old shoob.
Me an old shoob. Anyways. Your turn.
If I were to pick my best musician, my top Spotify played musician would be Haydn, for his horn concertos and stuff like that. But I would say that Mozart is my top favorite, and I would say only because of his horn concertos. Like that, his first horn concerto was the first piece of classical music when I was in grade 8 or 9, that I really internalized. That first horn concerto is not even the best of his horn concertos in my opinion, but definitely one that turned around my classical view of music. Beautiful piece.
Pulled you into the classical
Exactly,
world.
Yeah. Although I haven't played all 4 horn concertos yet, and I don't think I'm at that level until maybe my 3rd or 4th year, definitely something that kind of changed my perspective about music in general. Listening to those kinds of concertos and his method of composing for specific instruments, but then also his symphonies and stuff like that, really stuck with me. I think his method of portraying ideas and stuff is very fascinating.
You're just a genius of a musician.
Genius. Being a brass baby all the way back in 2000 and
honestly,
when did I start? Like 10 years ago?
I thought you were talking about Mozart being a brass baby.
Oh, well, he is a brass baby.
I was like a brass baby beyond his times.
brass baby all the way back in the late 1700s.
Just picture Mozart wearing like little sunglasses.
Trumpet in hand.
Piano in the other. Oh wait, that's not him. That's Haydn.
Oh my god. The Brandenburg Concerto.
Is that Mozart? Is it? I can't remember. Who wrote that again?
It's a Bach piece, so
that's embarrassing.
The Baroque Concerto, Brandenburg.
Yeah.
Our downfall in our first year.
Okay, but we're forgetting about the most monumental Mozart piece. Queen of the Night.
Let's not talk about that. The magic flute is not on our radar in this podcast.
I think it should be. No, but in all, I think one of his coolest works is Don Giovanni. Good opera.
I'm glad that we have both spectrums of instrumentalist and vocalist, because I wouldn't
like a dual opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't appreciate vocal pieces as much as you would, and you wouldn't appreciate maybe horn, brass concertos, instrumentalist stuff as much as I would, just because we don't notice that stuff about the music.
It's cool in that sense. We can tag team it.
Yes, we can discuss both sides, which is pretty cool. I like whenever, if I guess we're gonna describe how me and Janey met a little while ago, but we do live together. We're roommates, and
we're sitting at our kitchen table.
We're sitting currently at our kitchen table at almost 11 o'clock at night, just kind of
staring at a picture of our first meal on the wall.
Yeah, staring at the pictures on our wall and stuff like that. But whenever we go to the same school, so we go to the same classes and stuff like that.
Same year, same everything.
So when we get in the car after our day at school, we'll describe like something that she's learned, something that I've learned from our master classes, our lessons, our practice sessions and stuff like that. It's really interesting to learn more about a vocalist side of it.
It's interesting to learn about like an instrumentalist, because growing up I was like friends with like no musicians, barely. Only like
instrumentalists,
some guitarists, like, you know, like modern. I wasn't really friends with people who really loved classical music, so it's
someone
cool.
rocking Wagon Wheel on a 6-string.
No, more like
Johnny
Wonderwall.
Wonderwall.
Anyways,
Blackbird.
so here's Wonderwall.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night.
Take these broken wings and learn to fly. Anyways, that's the Beatles. We don't get to them till the Romantic period.
Romantic period. Paul McCartney in 1872.
What a stud.
What a stud. I think that Mozart could have been a piccolo virtuoso.
Piccolo virtuoso.
Anyways, we're gonna get into for the last part of our podcast. I know we've been going for a while. We have some editing to do on this, and we'll see if it turned out good. Imagine if it was just not recording, or if like all our audio was lost.
It's just like we'll later go back to it and it'll be like,
yeah. So we're gonna end off this podcast by just explaining kind of me and Janey's relationship a little bit more, and then we'll kind of end off with that. I know that this is a very long introduction to a podcast, but it's kind of cool.
I think this is actually considered short. Like, some podcasts go on for like an hour or two.
We did not do much research on this.
We kind of just like, we're in lockdown right now.
COVID is a thing right now.
It was like,
COVID is a thing.
It hit 9 o'clock and I was like, I am bored.
Yeah. Who knows? We might become the best classical musician podcast.
Honestly, we'll like quit university and we'll be like, yeah, we learned a lot for quitting university. Actually,
yeah.
Anyways,
to introduce me and Janey as people, I would say
not
that
just musicians,
as people together in a relationship, platonically. No, me and Janey met a week before our first year, probably at a Long McQuaid, which is a music store. Here, we didn't even talk to each other.
We knew who each other were, but we were like,
it was kind of like I know that girl, and then it's just like, oh, but we didn't talk.
We kept completely separate areas along a McQuaid.
Yeah,
got the same exact item, left. Saw it, and then when we got to the school at the exact same time.
Yeah, the next day or something like that, we got to the school at the same time,
and we were like, hi.
Yeah, we awkwardly walked in. And if you know me and Janey, you know that we're not awkward.
Nope.
We just kind of like say everything and stuff like that. But I think that was the first and only time that we've ever been awkward with each other. From that first week of our lessons and stuff like that. And you have to acknowledge we were in COVID. So we were masked up. We were 6 feet apart in every single class, and then we had online classes.
It was honestly like, I think it was like fresh out of lockdowns as well.
Yeah.
Like, it was probably like we had the summer and then
that
go to
was
school.
2020. So everything at the beginning of 2020 shut down. We went to school in fall of 2020 and met each other.
New school, new people. For me, new province.
Yeah.
Like, new everything. It was weird.
Yeah, because I'm from here. So we had the same classes and stuff like that. We started kind of hanging out at little gatherings that they'd have and stuff like that. And once COVID kind of settled down a bit, there was a few parties that we went to and kind of hung out at those kinds of things, but we never really started talking. And believe it or not, our friendship started with a little band called One Direction.
We both pretended like we didn't like One Direction.
Yeah, we were kind of just like
into that.
Yeah, kind of into, like, I know a couple of their singles. Yeah, I kind of.
We're talking about One Direction on a classical podcast.
Yeah. No, but it's our roots,
guilty,
man.
It's our roots.
It's our roots, man.
1D, then classical.
Yeah, exactly. So we went on a car drive one night and we just kind of started singing every single One Direction song because we were lying to each other when we said we didn't really know it.
And then, like, in my mind, I was like, I thought she only just liked them a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why does she know the not singles?
Yeah. So we kind of bonded over that, and then at the end of second year, we barely spent a day apart, kind of thing, and then we kind of looked for a place together and went the whole summer kind of just getting excited for this kind of stuff. We lived together for, 5 months now? 5-6 months?
I'd say 6-ish months, yeah.
Looking for a place with our other buddy for the fall, but and he'll definitely make an appearance on this podcast.
Yes, he's anticipated this podcast.
Yes, so there will probably be another co-host or a frequent guest on this show.
And he is pretty cool. And
pretty cool.
Just as passionate about Schubert as I am.
We're not gonna leak the name.
Not yet, just not yet.
Just letting you know, they're a baritone. So it'll be 2 singers against 1 instrumentalist. Yep.
But he also can have a dual mindset because here's the other hint. He started off as a percussion major.
Yeah, which is way out of both our ball fields.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's his story to share.
That is his. We'll leave you on a cliffhanger.
And
so kind of concluding off this, I think we're going to start in next episode with
starting right on Baroque.
Baroque, some Bach, some early Romantic, late Baroque, Mozart stuff.
I need to educate myself on Baroque again.
Yeah,
I'm stuck in the classical era and the Romantic right now.
Romantic, well...
I almost just said we're going to start out with Haydn.
Haydn? Until next time.
We'll sign off from here. I'm Janey.
I'm Mozart.
That's not a compliment.
And that is not a compliment.
Yesterday was Mozart's birthday.
Oh, was that yesterday or 2 days ago?
I think it was yesterday.
R.I.P. Mozart.
R.I.P. Mozart. Happy birthday. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for your horn concertos.
Thanks for your horn concertos.
Bye.
Bye. Duh.